What if I told you that the key to attracting younger women isn't what you think? Forget everything you thought you knew about attraction. This isn't about money. It isn't about looks. And it definitely isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about something deeper, something primal, something woven into female psychology that most men never learn, not even in their lifetime. And today, you are going to be one of the few who do. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the 7 types of older men that younger women find irresistibly attractive. These insights will not only surprise you, they will change the way you approach relationships forever. Because once you understand the psychology behind why younger women desire older men, you unlock an advantage younger guys simply cannot compete with. So, are you ready to become the man younger women secretly dream of? Then, let's dive in. I'm Mary Smith, and welcome to Mindful Senior Living. Now, before we go any further, I want you to pause for a moment and really think about your own experiences. Think about the conversations you've had, the subtle looks you've noticed, the moments that felt like they meant something, but you weren't quite sure what. Maybe you dismissed them. Maybe you told yourself, she's just being polite, or she probably isn't interested. But what if those moments were actually signals? What if you've been underestimating your own appeal all along? Because here's the truth. Many men, especially as they grow older, start to believe their value is declining. And that belief quietly shapes how they show up. But from a psychological perspective, something very different is happening beneath the surface. For many younger women, your age is not a disadvantage. It's a signal of depth, experience, and emotional grounding. And if you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or unsure about where you stand, I want you to know this. This conversation is for you. Not to turn you into someone else, but to help you see what's already there. Because the most powerful kind of attraction isn't created, it's revealed. Let's begin with something incredibly powerful, yet often misunderstood: the mentor figure. Have you ever noticed how a younger woman sometimes leans in just a little more when you speak? How she asks questions that go beyond small talk? Not just, what do you do? But how did you get there? Or, what would you do differently if you could start over? These aren't random questions, they are invitations. There was a man I once worked with, let's call him David. He was in his early 50s, calm, thoughtful, not particularly flashy. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, but during conversations, he had this way of listening, really listening. One day, a woman in her late 20s approached him after a group discussion and asked for advice about her career. That conversation turned into many, not because he pursued her, but because she felt something rare in his presence: clarity. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Younger women are often navigating identity, purpose, direction, and when they encounter a man who has already walked through uncertainty and come out grounded, it creates a powerful emotional response. It's not just attraction, it's trust mixed with curiosity. But here's where many men get it wrong. Being a mentor doesn't mean lecturing. It doesn't mean acting superior. In fact, the moment you try to teach too much, the dynamic breaks. What creates attraction is emotional safety paired with insight. It's the ability to guide without controlling. If you want to embody this, try something simple. The next time a woman shares something personal, resist the urge to give advice. Instead, ask a deeper question. What do you feel is the hardest part about that? Or, what would your ideal outcome look like? This shifts you from a problem solver to someone who helps her think, and that is incredibly attractive, because when she feels like she grows in your presence, she associates that growth with you. And growth is addictive. Now let's go deeper. The self-made man. This isn't about wealth, it's about narrative. You see, human beings are wired to respond to stories. And when a younger woman interacts with a man who has built something, whether it's a career, a business, or simply a life of resilience. She isn't just seeing the outcome, she's sensing the journey. Think about the difference between someone who talks about what they will do and someone who speaks from what they've already lived. One carries hope, the other carries proof. There's a psychological principle called earned confidence. It's different from surface-level confidence. It comes from overcoming obstacles, from failing and recovering, from staying in the game long enough to understand it deeply. And this kind of confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It's felt. I remember a client who once said, "I don't know what it is about him. He doesn't even try, but he makes me feel like everything will be okay." That feeling, that's what a self-made man represents. Not perfection, not dominance, but direction. And in a world where many younger women feel uncertainty about the future, direction is incredibly grounding. If you're watching this and thinking, "But my life isn't perfect," let me gently challenge that thought. It's not about perfection, it's about ownership. Can you speak about your life honestly? Can you acknowledge where you struggled, what you learned, how you changed? Because vulnerability paired with resilience creates something magnetic. And here's a small exercise for you. Take a moment today and write down 3 moments in your life that shaped you. Not your achievements, but your turning points. The difficult conversations, the risks, the moments you had to choose growth over comfort. Then ask yourself, how do I speak about these moments? Do I hide them or do I own them? Because your story is your power. And when shared authentically, it becomes something a younger woman doesn't just admire, she feels drawn to. Now, there's something even more subtle that often gets overlooked, the enigma. This is where things get interesting, because attraction is not just about what is known, it's about what is felt but not fully understood. Have you ever met someone who didn't say much, yet somehow held your attention? Someone whose presence made you curious? That's the power of psychological space. In modern dating, there is an overwhelming tendency to overshare, to explain everything, to fill every silence. But mystery, real mystery, is not about playing games. It's about emotional restraint. It's about knowing that not everything needs to be revealed immediately. When you allow space in a conversation, something fascinating happens. The other person begins to lean in. They start to fill in the gaps. Their mind becomes engaged. And engagement is the beginning of attraction. I once observed a conversation where a man was asked about his past travels. Instead of listing every place he'd been, he paused, smiled slightly, and said, "There's one place that changed how I see everything. Maybe I'll tell you about it sometime." And then he moved on. Do you see what happened there? He created a loop, a sense of unfinished curiosity. This isn't manipulation, it's pacing. If you reveal everything too quickly, there's no journey. And without a journey, there's no emotional investment. So here's something to try. The next time you're in a conversation, instead of answering every question fully, leave a little space. Not in a cold way, but in a grounded, intentional way. Let the conversation breathe. Because when a woman feels like there's more to discover about you, she naturally wants to come back, and that's where attraction quietly begins to build. If you're finding this insightful so far, take a moment to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know, have you ever experienced a moment where someone seemed drawn to you, but you couldn't quite explain why? Because what we're uncovering here goes far deeper than surface-level attraction, and we're just getting started. Now there's another layer to attraction that many men underestimate, and it has very little to do with what you say and everything to do with how your mind works. This is the creative visionary. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone made you see something in a completely different way? Not because they were trying to impress you, but because their perspective was different, fresh, unexpected. That kind of thinking creates a spark, and that spark is deeply attractive. From a psychological standpoint, creativity signals cognitive flexibility. It tells the brain, this person can adapt, solve problems, and navigate complexity. And for a younger woman, especially one who is still shaping her worldview, this is incredibly compelling. Because being around a man like that doesn't just feel interesting, it feels expansive. I remember a woman once describing a man she couldn't stop thinking about. She said, "It's like every time I talk to him, I leave with a new way of seeing things." Notice she didn't mention his looks. She didn't talk about status. She talked about how he made her think. And thinking leads to feeling. This where many men miss the mark. They assume attraction is built through performance, saying the right things, doing the right things. But in reality, attraction often grows through stimulation of the mind. When you introduce new ideas, when you challenge perspectives gently, when you connect dots others don't even see, you create an emotional experience. And experiences are what people remember. But let's make this practical, because I know you're not here just for theory. The next time you're having a conversation, instead of staying on the surface, take one idea a step deeper. If she mentions something simple like her job, you might say, "What part of that excites you the most?" Or even, "If you could redesign that entire system, what would you change?" Suddenly, the conversation shifts. It becomes engaging, alive. And here's the deeper truth. Creativity isn't about being artistic. It's about being perceptive. It's about noticing patterns, asking better questions, and allowing your mind to explore beyond the obvious. That alone can set you apart in a way that feels almost magnetic. Now let's move into something that brings energy into the dynamic. This is the adventurous spirit. There's a reason why some of the strongest emotional bonds are formed during shared experiences. Travel, exploration, trying something new. These moments activate what psychologists call emotional intensification. In simple terms, when people experience something exciting together, their emotional connection deepens faster. But here's what makes this particularly powerful for you. As an older man, you don't just bring the idea of adventure, you bring the context of it. The stories, the lessons, the unexpected turns. You're not exploring for the first time, you're exploring with awareness. I once spoke to a woman who said her most unforgettable relationship wasn't with the most attractive man she'd met, but with the one who took her to places she had never imagined. Not just physically, but emotionally. He introduced her to experiences she didn't even know she was craving. And that's the key word here, craving. Adventure fulfills a psychological need for novelty, and novelty creates dopamine. Dopamine creates excitement, and excitement often gets interpreted as attraction. But let's ground this in reality. You don't need to be constantly traveling the world to embody this. Adventure is a mindset. It's the willingness to step outside routine and invite someone into that space. It could be as simple as saying, "There's this place I've been meaning to check out, come with me." Or sharing a story that makes her feel like she's stepping into another world through your words. And here's something important. When you talk about your experiences, don't rush through them. Let her feel them. Describe the moment, the atmosphere, the unexpected twist. Because when she imagines it, her brain processes it almost like a real experience. And now, you're not just telling a story. You're creating one beautiful story together. If you're still with me here, I want you to take a second and reflect. Which of these qualities feels most natural to you so far? Not the one you think sounds impressive, but the one that genuinely feels like you. Drop it in the comments. I read them, and they help shape what we explore next. Now, let's talk about something that may not sound exciting on the surface, but is one of the most powerful attractors in modern dating: the reliable partner. This is where everything shifts from attraction to attachment. A couple moving away from a lively party to a quiet, intimate walk home together. Because while excitement can draw someone in, it's reliability that makes them stay. In today's world, consistency is rare, and because it's rare, it stands out more than ever. A man who does what he says, who shows up when he promises, who remains steady even when things get complicated, this creates a sense of psychological safety. And safety is often misunderstood. It's not about being boring, it's about being predictable in the ways that matter. There's a concept in psychology called secure attachment. It describes a dynamic where a person feels safe enough to open up, to be vulnerable, to invest emotionally without fear of sudden withdrawal. And do you know what creates that? Not grand gestures, not constant excitement, consistency. He was the one who called when he said he would, who remembered the small details, who didn't disappear when things became emotionally complex. She told me, I didn't realize how much I needed that until I experienced it. Reliability isn't something she always consciously looks for, but once she feels it, it becomes non-negotiable. So how do you embody this without losing your individuality? Start small. If you say you'll do something, do it. If you make a plan, honor it. If something changes, communicate it clearly. These seem simple, but they build trust over time, and trust builds emotional investment. But there's another layer here that's even more powerful: emotional reliability. Can you remain calm when she's overwhelmed? Can you listen without immediately trying to fix everything? Can you hold space without judgment? Because when a woman realizes she can bring her full emotional world to you and you won't react with impatience or avoidance, that's when real connection begins. And that connection, it's far more powerful than attraction alone. Now, before we move into the final and perhaps most transformative quality, I want you to consider something. Out of everything we've discussed so far, none of it requires you to become someone else. Not one of these traits is about pretending, performing, or competing. They are all about refinement, about recognizing what already exists within you and allowing it to come forward more intentionally. And if this is resonating with you, take a moment to like the video. It might seem small, but it helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. And if you've ever felt like the dating world has overlooked you, I promise you, you're not alone in that feeling. But you may be closer to understanding your value than you think. Because what we're about to explore next ties everything together in a way that changes how a woman sees you completely. And more importantly, it's about how you see yourself. Now let's step into something that, on the surface, may seem simple. But in reality, it's one of the most transformative qualities a man can embody: the gentleman. This quality goes beyond gestures. It's about being grounded. And before you assume you already understand what that means, I want you to stay with me here, because this goes far beyond opening doors or polite gestures. Those are just the visible expressions. What we're really talking about is emotional refinement. A true gentleman is not performing kindness, he is grounded in it. There's a quiet power in a man who doesn't feel the need to dominate a conversation, who doesn't interrupt, who doesn't react impulsively when emotions rise. Instead, he responds. He listens. He chooses his words carefully, not to impress, but to respect. And let me ask you something. Have you ever been around someone who made you feel completely at ease without even trying? Someone whose presence alone lowered your stress, made you feel seen, made you feel safe? That's what a gentleman creates. I once spoke with a woman who described a date that changed her entire perspective on relationships. She said, "He didn't try to impress me, he just paid attention. He noticed when I was uncomfortable and adjusted without making it awkward. He made me feel like I mattered." And then she paused and said something that stayed with me. I didn't even realize how rare that was. That's the point. It's about being truly unforgettable in a rushed world. In a world where many interactions feel rushed, distracted, or self-focused, a man who brings presence and consideration becomes unforgettable. But here's the deeper psychological layer. When a woman feels respected, not superficially, but genuinely, her nervous system relaxes. And when the nervous system relaxes, emotional openness increases. She shares more, she trusts more, she connects more deeply. And all of that begins with how you make her feel in the smallest moments. These are not tactics. Now let's make this real for you. The next time you're with someone, notice the details. Is she comfortable? Is she engaged? Is there something unspoken in her body language? And instead of ignoring it, respond to it subtly. Maybe it's adjusting your tone, giving her space to speak, or simply acknowledging something she said earlier. These are not tactics. They are expressions of awareness. They are expressions of awareness. And awareness is incredibly attractive. But let's go even deeper, because being a gentleman is not just about how you treat her. It's about how you carry yourself. Do you remain composed under pressure? Do you avoid unnecessary conflict? Do you stand firm in your values without becoming rigid? Because emotional maturity is one of the strongest predictors of long-term attraction. It signals stability, it signals self-control, it signals that you are not easily shaken. And for a younger woman, especially in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, that kind of presence is grounding. Now, I want to pause here and invite you into something a little more personal. Think about the last time you felt truly respected by someone. Not flattered, not praised, respected. How did it feel? What did they do differently? A simple shift in perspective. Because whatever that feeling was, that's what you have the ability to give. And when you give that consistently, without expectation, without performance, it transforms the entire dynamic. This is where true intimacy begins. The mentor, the self-made man, the enigma, the creative visionary, the adventurous spirit, the reliable partner, the gentleman. These are not separate identities. They are dimensions, different expressions of a man who has lived and learned. None of these qualities exist in isolation. The mentor, the self-made man, the enigma, the creative visionary, the adventurous spirit, the reliable partner, the gentleman. These are not separate identities you have to choose from. They are dimensions, different expressions of a man who has lived, learned, and evolved. Different expressions of a man who has lived, learned, and evolved. And here's where it all connects. Attraction is not about becoming more, it's about becoming clearer. Clear in your values, clear in your communication, clear in your presence. This clarity is felt by everyone around you. Because when you are clear, others feel it. I remember working with a man who felt completely lost in the dating world. He told me, I feel like I have to compete with younger guys who have more energy, more confidence, more everything. And I asked him one question, what do you have that they don't? At first, he couldn't answer. But over time, as we explored his life, his experiences, his resilience, something shifted. He stopped trying to match others and started owning himself. He stopped hiding who he already was. And do you know what happened? The dynamic changed, not because he became someone new, but because he stopped hiding. Not because he became someone new, but because he stopped hiding who he already was. That's the shift I want for you. That's the shift I want for you. Not a transformation based on pressure, but a realization based on truth. Because the truth is, your age carries something powerful. Perspective. You've seen things others haven't. You've felt things others are beginning to understand. You've seen things others haven't. You've felt things others are just beginning to understand. You've made mistakes, learned lessons, adjusted your path, and all of that creates depth. And depth is something that cannot be faked. Now, I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine walking into a room and not needing to prove anything, not needing to impress, not needing to compare yourself to anyone else, just being present. In that room, you are not competing. Grounded, awareness of yourself and your environment, aware, You see things others miss. That energy is magnetic because it's rare. This kind of presence is a gift you give to her. And when a younger woman encounters that kind of presence, she feels it immediately, even if she can't fully explain it. She just knows there's something different about you, and that something is not a trick. It's alignment between who you are and how you show up. Alignment between who you are and how you show up. Now, if this is resonating with you on a deeper level, I want you to take a moment, not just to listen, but to reflect. Which of these qualities have you been overlooking in yourself? Which ones have you been downplaying or dismissing? Because sometimes the most powerful shift doesn't come from adding something new, but from finally recognizing what's already there. And if you're still here with me, I want to say this: thank you, because this kind of conversation requires openness. It requires a willingness to look inward, to question old beliefs, to consider a new perspective. And that alone says something about you. Now, as we move into the final part of this conversation, we're going to bring everything together in a way that not only changes how you approach attraction, but how you understand it entirely. Because what we've been talking about is not just about relationships. It's about identity, the man you have become. And once that shifts, everything else follows. It's about identity. And once that shifts, everything else follows. You are no longer performing. And once that shifts, everything else follows. Now let's bring this all together in a way that truly changes how you see yourself and how others experience you. Because what we've explored isn't just a list of attractive traits, it's a deeper understanding of identity, presence, and emotional impact. And here's the truth that ties everything together. Attraction is not something you chase, it's something you embody. When you reflect on the mentor, the self-made man, the enigma, the creative visionary, the adventurous spirit, the reliable partner, and the gentleman, the creative visionary, the adventurous spirit, the reliable partner, and the gentleman, you begin to realize something powerful. These aren't roles you switch between. They are layers of the same man, expressions of a life lived with awareness. And the reason younger women are drawn to this isn't random, it's psychological. Human beings are naturally attracted to emotional certainty paired with depth. And that's exactly what you offer when you stop trying to compete and start showing up as you. Let me share something that might shift your perspective even further. Many men believe attraction is about being chosen, but in reality, attraction is about creating an experience. Think about that for a moment. When a woman spends time with you, what does she feel? Not what does she see, not what does she hear, but what does she feel? Does she feel understood, relaxed, curious? Because those emotional states are what determine whether she wants to come back into your world. I once spoke with a woman who ended a relationship with someone who, on paper, seemed perfect, successful, attractive, impressive. But when I asked her why she left, she said something very simple. I didn't feel anything when I was with him. And then she described another man, not as conventionally impressive, but she said, with him I feel like I can breathe. I feel like I can be myself. That's the difference. And that difference is created through presence. Now let's make this deeply practical for you, because understanding is only powerful when it becomes something you can live. I want you to start noticing your energy in interactions, not overthinking it, but observing it. Are you rushing to fill silence? Are you trying to prove something? Are you seeking validation? Or are you allowing the moment to unfold naturally? Because when you slow down internally, something shifts externally. Your voice becomes calmer, your body language becomes more grounded, your eye contact becomes more intentional. And all of this communicates something without a single word being said. It communicates confidence. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, steady kind that comes from self-acceptance. Now here's something important that I want you to really take in. You don't need to attract every woman, you only need to connect with the right one. And the right one is not looking for perfection. She's not looking for a performance. She's looking for a feeling of safety, a feeling of depth, a feeling of emotional connection that she doesn't easily find elsewhere. And when you embody the qualities we've discussed, you naturally filter out the wrong connections and draw in the right ones. This is where everything becomes effortless, not because there's no effort, but because you're no longer forcing outcomes. Now, let me ask you something that might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's important. Where have you been holding yourself back? Is it in how you speak and how you show up? In what you believe about your age, your value, your desirability? Because many of the limitations men experience are not external. They are internal narratives. I'm too old. She wouldn't be interested. These thoughts may feel real, but they are not facts. They are interpretations. And once you begin to question them, you create space for something new. A new way of seeing yourself. A new way of showing up. I've seen men completely transform their experiences, not by changing their appearance, but by shifting their internal belief about who they are. Because when you believe you have value, you communicate it through your tone, your posture, your presence, and people respond to that. Now, I want to give you something simple but powerful to carry forward from this conversation. The next time you interact with a woman, instead of asking yourself, "Does she like me?" I want you to ask a different question. How does she feel in my presence? That one shift changes everything, because now your focus moves from seeking approval to creating connection. And connection is where attraction lives. As we come to the end, I want to remind you of something. You are not behind. You are not less desirable. You are not competing with younger men. You are operating on a different level entirely, a level built on experience and depth. And those qualities are not common, they are rare, and rarity creates value. So instead of trying to keep up with a game that was never designed for you, step into the one that already aligns with who you are. Now, if this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to take a moment to like the video. It helps this message reach more people. And if something in this spoke to you personally, share it in the comments. I read them and they truly matter. And if you're ready to go deeper into connection, make sure you subscribe to Mindful Senior Living. This is a space for honesty and real insight. Before you go, I want you to carry this thought with you. You don't need to become someone else to be attractive. You simply need to become more present in who you already are. Because that man, shaped by your experiences, is powerful. And he's exactly what the right woman is looking for. So stand tall in that, trust it, and most importantly, live it.